Alpha Project, we're back.
Yeah!
We're back. I'm pumped. Today we're going to do our best not to bounce around.
Yeah!
It's going to happen a little bit.
Yeah!
We're going to focus on getting out of your own way.
Yeah!
And getting out of Parnell's way.
I'm fucking jacked up, man. Listen, we did not record last week and I'm hyped for this.
You know what? We were talking about it outside, and actually this is what, week fourth time we're recording, and how big of an actual takeaway it was not recording last week.
Yeah, it hurt my mental, man.
It did, and honestly, for the whole week, I was a little bit out of sync, and it was just that one little bit of just that positive conversation.
That normalcy.
Yeah.
It's almost like the positive conversation with friends. Even though you can have positive conversation with your your family, your mom, your dad, your girlfriend, whatever. You know, having guys around you in your circle to be like, hey, man, just kind of hold you down or keep your head level. You know what I mean? No matter where you're going in life, it's kind of nice to have those. And if you don't have those, especially me, I've realized if I didn't have that, it's detrimental.
It's important, as a dude, to be able to have a space where you can just, with walls down, with barriers down, have the conversations and be able to talk about shit.
Well, I think that actually is super important to talk about, because I found anytime I have conversations with certain types of people, and you become vulnerable, open, you show your weaknesses, those people tend to take advantage of those weaknesses and see you now in lower status. And so they treat you differently when they see those weaknesses, which I think feeds into the idea that it's difficult to have those types of conversations with people.
Are you referring to like friends of yours or just random people?
Friends of mine.
So if they're friends of yours, those aren't really friends if they're taking advantage of you for being vulnerable. But that's a different conversation. I understand what you're saying.
Right.
There's a stigma around it where you say, hey, you know what, if I am open, if I am vulnerable, people are going to take advantage of it or think negative about it. And in reality, my counter to that is either that's your first clue that you need different people around you,
right,
or you need to have more of those conversations so that you get out of your own head when you're saying those things. Mm-hmm. Because then once you're out of your own head and once you're out of your own way, then it becomes that's normal. That's part of your life now. And you are able to say, hey, I am open. I am vulnerable. And honestly, I can with confidence say that I am a very open person. I am quite vulnerable every single day of my life. And when I made that shift, there was some getting involved in my own head and saying, oh, you know what, what's the feedback going to be like this? What are people going to think? Now, after practicing that, it is completely gone. Yeah,
and that's a callback to one of the first episodes we did, where I literally said, listen, if you're the more vulnerable you are to the people you allow into your circle, the more trust is there. And I think if you are vulnerable to the people that you do trust, then it not only solidifies it more, but it gains their trust in a way that is unequal to anything else you could do, right? I mean, it's a difference between, lending a guy $1,000 and trusting you'll get that money back, and, to being vulnerable to, whatever negative stuff has happened to you in your life. When you get really, really personal, because money's not personal, right? But if you get really personal and dig into what's happened or affected you in your life, in your childhood, or whatever you're going through, right? There's this stigma with guys that you can't really do that. But I've found that once you do that, it's a whole new world of opportunity.
You open up a door to a different world. You're right, and I actually want to talk about money for a second, because it is alpha. It's that stigma to be, to be a boss, to be alpha, to be that person. You need to have the bankroll coming in. Which, honestly, there's some validity to that. Not in a sense where it's a status thing. It's more so what you do with it. As someone I've been on every spot in that spectrum of income earning. And when I am generating cash, I'm able to help more people. I'm able to get out into my community. I'm able to do things, whether that is getting out and taking my people out, right, for a good night, or, being able to, support my family, or, chip in and, do something for my cousins or something like that. When you do have the cash coming in, you're able to be more impactful with what you're doing.
I believe that to be true in some cases, not every case. I agree with you that if, especially, we're in North America, we're recording in North America, so, the things we do here are different than the things they do in other parts of the world, right? For instance, when I was in India, nobody has money in India, right? It's a very, very poor nation. And when you're there, what makes you an alpha in India is having people into your circle, feeding them, right? Showing them around, right? Giving them, it doesn't matter how much money you have, as long as you're giving all you can to that situation. And whether that doesn't mean money, that just means, affection or love or, just putting your all into whatever you're doing. I think that shows more leadership, more alpha than anything, than money, right? But I do agree with you, especially in today's economy in North America. That's what we kind of go to, right? You have to be making bank, right? Millions or hundreds and whatever you're doing, right? And it also depends on what social class you're in, right? If you come from, lower income households or lower income communities, right? It's more about the relationships you have with those people in those communities and not necessarily how much money you have. Yes, there's more opportunity when you have the money and you can lead those people out of that situation. But I don't think that's necessarily dependent on money.
And can we dial it in? Can we land the plane on what you're contributing? Whether it be, there's ways to contribute with cash. There's also ways to contribute, like you said, with love and affection. And that goes back to actually taking the chance and being brave and getting vulnerable and reaching out to people, right, and taking the lead and saying, oh, you know what? Hey, my buddy is going through a tough time. It's so easy as a man to brush it under the rug and say, oh, he'll figure it out, right? And then you look at the statistics right now, especially this year, when you have suicides that are up by just a staggering amount. Right?
Yeah,
right now more than ever, people are crying out, whether it's verbally or non-verbally, for a circle that they can trust.
Well, it's interesting that in a different culture, the value of yourself or your status or who you are in those communities is representative by your ability to network with people, build relationships with people meaningfully by being vulnerable and then knowing the difference of when you can help and when to ask for help when you need it. And then inside of that, relying and trusting on that network to, if you're in need of help, to bring that help to you and not be judged for it, right? Because everybody at some point in their life needs some kind of help. But then once you do get to that place where you, the proverbial I can give back now, I have money or I'm whatever in a better situation, then knowing when you can give back to somebody. And I think that kind of circles the idea of getting out of your own way and being able to say, you know what, right now I'm not doing good at all. And right now I need help from somebody, and you rely on your networks.
I think, because, getting out of your own way for me means, let's say, going back to what Devin said, admitting that you need help with something, right? Having the confidence in yourself to say, you know what, I don't know all the angles here. Let me see who I can call. Who knows this better than I do, right?
Who's in your circle? Who's your master?
Exactly. We have a big thing about, our egos. Guys have egos, right? We want to do everything ourselves, or, we're ashamed to ask for help, or we're scared to ask for help, fear of judgment. And, I think once you have those relationships with people, that you can be like, hey, listen, I need your help with this. Take Devin and I's relationship, for example, right? We're business partners. We are too, right? But if anything I need, I say, Devin, can we handle this? If not, let me know, because we'll find somebody to do it, right? And he's always like, yes, we can either do this or do that, right? I have no shame in asking for help in something I don't know. And I think that's one of the big things a lot of people fall back on is like, okay, I don't know this, and I don't know anybody else that knows this, because they haven't had those conversations. They haven't established those relationships.
And if you don't, it goes back to starting point. What's your relationship with yourself? Are you willing to ask for help? Right? If you recognize, oh, I don't know how to do this. I've been bad for this, and I'm going to say that for a big chunk of my life, where I say I will say yes, I'll do this, or I'll start something and I don't know how to actually progress with it.
Right.
And instead of getting brave and saying, hey, how do I reach out? Who do I reach out to? That I recognize might be good in that situation to help me over that hump, I would stop. I would not do that. And that project or that goal would get discarded. And, who knows how many things that, all of us have missed out on in our lives because of just not taking that simple step of saying, hey, who can help me with this?
So when in your lives did you learn the skill of getting out of your own way and being able to ask for help when you need it, or take the steps necessary to get that help that you needed? When did that happen for you?
It hasn't happened yet for me, and to a degree where I'm comfortable with, right? And this is always goes back to always evolving, always progressing in life, right? Where there's certain people I'm very comfortable with and asking for help from, and there's certain people I would never even approach with even a question, right? And that just goes to knowing their character and knowing who they are as people, and knowing what their heart wants to do, right? But I am very comfortable in when people are asking me, I'm very comfortable doling out advice, whether it be good advice or not. That's up to them.
Yeah, I think that's not unique to you, though. Everybody loves to give advice.
Right, for sure. Especially, being an influencer, I hate that fucking word, but, when you have a little bit of shine, and people kind of trust your word from something else you're doing, there tends to be this thing where if you're good at one, like we tend to equate in our mind that if a person is good at this thing, then they're also good at this thing, right? Like let's say Steven's really good at making money, but he knows shit about a relationship. Well, just because he makes money, I trust him to make money for me. Why would I go to him for relationship advice? But that's what people do, right? They see you good at one thing and they think you're good at everything. So let me ask this person, and you have to be able to judge people for what their character flaws and what their character successes are, right? If I'm going to go to Devin, I'm not going to go to Devin for. Well, there's actually not much I wouldn't go to Devin for, but I wouldn't go to Devin for criminal advice, or getting out of jail advice, some shit, right? Like. But you have to realize who you're speaking to and what topic you're on, right?
This is the fallacy in trusting somebody like Cardi B with the political point of view when, she might be really good at being controversial and growing an audience and whatever else that, is involved in her growing her music career, but not necessarily very well educated in the complexities of world politics. And that takes a certain level of skill. So identifying who the people you're talking to and what their strengths and weaknesses are, I think stems from, first of all, having your own sense of self-awareness, knowing what you're capable of, and then identifying like, shit, there's stuff I'm not good at, there's stuff I am good at. So if that's my condition, then that's everybody's condition. There's stuff Steve's really good at that, I would need advice for. There's stuff where he's not good at that, and so on and so forth. So kind of knowing the difference of being able to recognize what somebody's good at and what they're not good at,
right?
So that you can be able to openly ask for advice in those arenas. But also that person has to be the kind of person that's willing to give advice. Because I've met a lot of people in my travels that, and actually you and me have a couple of mutual friends that are like this, where, you have one period of weakness where things aren't going your way or they fall apart and you fall apart as a result of that. And then when you share that with somebody who you love and trust and have grown a relationship with, and only for them to turn around now and be like, this is the moment of weakness now where I can manipulate you to do the things that I want you to do. So, and you got to acknowledge that there are people like that are out there who don't have that level of self-awareness or that sense of serving people where the only thing that they're serving is self.
Right. I think, Steve brought up a great point, I think on the second episode here, where he was, there's different aspects. Everybody has different aspects of their life, right? You have professional, you have your relationships, you have your money, there's all these different aspects, right? So if let's say your professional life is going good and your relationship is going good, right? Well, then maybe your money's dwindling, or maybe your relationship with your mother is falling off, or there's always something that we could be working on, right? So trying to have an even keel at all those things is very difficult, and having the right people in the place to talk about the issues you're having on certain topics or in those certain areas is a good thing to have. And like you were saying, to get out of your own way and recognize that, I think is one of the things that most people don't do, because most people just think, okay, it's going to work itself out eventually, right? And not actually stepping up and saying, this is what I need to do to accomplish this goal, or stepping up and saying, this is what I do to fix this problem. They're saying it'll just go away. And I'm definitely guilty of this myself, right? As last week would have told, right? If we would have recorded last week, I would have gone into the whole thing, right? And I had to reach out to advice from you and from the other guys in this room, right? Simply because I didn't know, right? I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right. And funny enough, it doesn't change my perspective on you and what you're capable of and the things that you can handle inside of our relationship and outside of our relationship. I know what you're capable of, and I also know and recognize when you're strong and when this might not be the greatest time to pile more shit on your already fragile fucking back as you're climbing the same mountain as I'm climbing. Do you know what I'm saying? So that takes a lot of I don't even know what the word would be, but it just takes a lot of me knowing the difference between the different stages that you're at in your life, when you are and when you're not, and then not judging you or being like, oh, why aren't my friends around when I need them? I'm always there for people when they need me. But that's the social condition. Sometimes you need people, sometimes you don't.
It was interesting actually when I broached the subject with you. You showed a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy, which you do for everything pretty much, right? And having those two things piggyback off each other was something I'm not used to coming from another male.
Right. I'll be honest with you when I say this in the conversation that we had, there was a moment where I knew everything kind of switched, and you're like, shit. I did not want to have this conversation. Because I didn't expect it to go this way.
Yeah.
Right?
I wanted to vent.
Those are always the conversations that you need to have.
Yeah. And I wanted
point,
to let you vent. And I wish I could have. But like there was this other side of me that was like, what can I do to help you, bro? Like, you know what I mean?
And that's the thing as a dude, too, is it's like we so often go into that immediate reaction of what can I do to help, right?
That's what we do in relationships, all relationships.
We want to be fixers. We want to be fixing everything. And honestly, most of the time, it's as simple as letting the person talk it out. Because honestly, anybody can come to you with a problem that they're working through. And yes, we're always really good at giving advice unless we're giving it to ourselves.
And that's how we get in trouble with our female.
For sure.
With our relationships with females, is because we want to solve their problem. They don't need us to solve their problem. They need us just to fucking listen.
Honestly, the person, whoever is having the issue, you know what, if it's me, I know the answer. I just need to find there. So honestly, the most effective way is to, A, listen, and then B, ask questions. Get the person talking, right? Get them to open up about it. Be that person that they can actually express what they're going through to, and most of the time they're going to come to their own solutions about it, and something that works. Because honestly, when people are having problems, it's the solution does not present itself. If I'm going through some shit, the solution does not present itself to me because I'm thinking about the problem. And it takes getting out of your way and thinking about the solution, or even just removing the problem and saying, okay, you know what is a creative way to get around this?
Right, you were too close to the problem to recognize exactly what the issues were. Like you saw the overall, but you only saw it so close to your nose, right? So you need somebody else to kind of pull you back and say, listen, let's take a look at the big picture and figure it out. Because if you're missing this aspect or this aspect, you're not going to come to a conclusion of the whole topic, right? So that's one of the things about getting out of your way as well. If you're looking at situations in a way that only benefits you, or your ego is so big that you say, well, how come I'm not in the wrong? How come she has to be right, or how come he has to be right, or how come this situation is like this? I didn't do anything wrong, right? Whereas getting out of your way is saying, what could I have done wrong in this situation to have it end up like this, or what could I have done differently to have the situation end up like this?
And doing stuff differently, like it's crazy to think, and I always look at that, and this is, we're getting towards the end of the year here, and it's a perfect time when people are naturally reflecting, right? So every year around, end of December, beginning of January, I do a lot of natural self-reflection, and okay, where was I a year ago? Because how many times, how many people do you know where, 5 years ago, we were boys, and we're still boys today, and I look and it's like, okay, I've made these, big dramatic shifts in my life. You're still doing the same thing, right? And if you do change nothing's going to change, right? And it's ridiculous to think that something will change. So, Pernod, when you were saying, I'm just going to let the problem solve itself, that's not the reality. That's an irresponsible way of thinking.
Absolutely.
Because shit does not figure itself out, right? It just doesn't happen. Either you, take control and grab it and find a solution, or it's not important enough for you to actually have a different result.
Right, and the thing is, like, I use that as a figure of speech. Obviously, you guys know that, right? And I would never say that to anybody else. Like, when we were saying this off camera, like, I'll just let it figure it out by itself. I mean, I'm saying that to a room full of guys, and there's 3 guys in here that know that I'm not going to do that.
It's a cliche colloquialism. What is that word?
Colloquialism.
That one.
Right?
It's like just a thing that you say, but you're like, fuck, at some point I'm going to have to own up and step up and do the shit that needs to happen to fix that problem.
And the funny thing about that is that you can tell the guys that mean that, or they actually mean, they're saying let it work itself, but they actually mean they're going to go home and solve it. You can pretty much look at somebody in the eye and you can tell that they're going to step up and they're going to be that fucking man and they're going to go and handle that problem, right? Whatever solution they came up with to handle it, they're going to do that, right? And when we get to the solutions, I mean, there's good solutions for things and there's bad solutions for things, right? And you have to remember that taking advice from the people that don't know the best way to solve issues probably isn't the good way to go, right?
For sure.
So you have to be able to talk to the right people in the right situations, getting back to it, right? And talking to you guys about what I was going through was easy. And
I would argue to say that, either you're going to do something about it or you're not. And even by not doing something about it, that's a choice you're making, right? By not doing something, that's still choosing a path to go. And when people are saying, okay, if I have something come up and I choose to do nothing about it, all that means is that issue or that problem is not important enough for me to find a solution for it.
At this
Because
moment,
it might be.
Yeah.
It might be, okay, you know what, I'm actually going to let it simmer for 3 days and sleep on it, and maybe something will come to me.
He had to use 3 days.
If you let it go past that, then obviously it's not important enough to you to find a solution.
Absolutely.
And I would also argue that by doing anything, there's good decisions and bad decisions. There's good solutions, there's bad solutions. However, by doing anything differently than what you're doing, because if what you're doing is not giving you the results that you want, doing anything differently, in my mind, is a positive. Either it's going to work or it's not going to work.
Exactly.
If it doesn't work, guess what? I would rather figure that out now than let it simmer for another 6 months and still be in the same place.
Test, double down, repeat, buddy.
So that begs the question then, what steps do you follow as an alpha in your circles and, in your life? What steps do you follow to get out of your own way?
So for me, I'm gonna rewind to 10 years ago, and it was very much I can do everything myself. Huge ego about it. I can do everything, and I would fail at a lot.
Because wouldn't that be fucking awesome if you did?
It would be amazing.
Right?
Guess what? It's not realistic. It doesn't exist. Right? And to answer your question earlier, Devin, about when did that shift happen for me? It's always still ongoing. It's always still progressing. The first major shift happened when I joined a mastermind group, and I was listening to people, and at that point still, I was like, man, I'm doing really well in my life right now. I'm crushing out all my goals that I'm setting for myself. And then I started talking to these people in this group, and they run hedge funds, like start and run hedge funds.
They're
and they start
it.
talking about money, and I was like, holy shit! I'm like, I know nothing. Right? Like Jon Snow, I know fucking nothing about this. And at that point I said, okay, there are people out here who are A, willing to help, B, have the skills, knowledge, and tools and resources to help, right? All I needed to do was ask. And it was that simple.
Listen, yeah.
And they listened, and it was like, okay, boom, here's what you're going through. Here's a similar situation that this guy had gone through, and he's like, here's exactly what I did. Is that going to work for you? I don't know. However, it worked for me.
Listen,
The second time was it's ongoing still with my business partner in my primary gig, and he's very good at just listening. And then he's just like, hey, you know what? Just like, and he does that, and he never gives me an answer. He never gives me a straight answer. He will always just listen and then ask me a couple questions. Ask me a couple questions, and then like 5 or 10 minutes into this conversation with him, I'm like, oh,
there it is.
I know what to do. The answer's right here. It's been right in front of me the whole time, right? And so it's continuously ongoing, and I think it's just so important to recognize I don't need to be good at everything.
Right. And that's something we reference. I mean, I think in all 3 of the episodes we've recorded so far is the modeling process, right? Yeah. No matter what you're going through in life, somebody has already experienced that, right? Unless you're building this, $1 trillion something or other, and you're way ahead of everybody. You're Bill Gates trying to solve the toilet issue in Sudan, clean drinking water, wherever the hell he's doing it. You know what I mean? Like, those problems are problems that nobody else is going through. So he's the only one doing that. Whereas problems that we have are pretty minor compared to that, right? So there's always somebody we can look at, say, oh, look, this guy did this to get through this situation, the exact same as me. If I do that, if I model what he did, I will get through it the same way too, which is a fairly good plan to start. You just have to adjust little tweaks here and there to figure out what works for you.
Fit it to your life, and you're so right. And even in that example, solving clean drinking water, the people that are going through that have teams of people constantly masterminding together, working on one small issue.
He literally put
one man out there just like laying pipe
for sure.
Fucking for kilometers just to get water.
He put on a science competition to say, we have to solve this problem. Give me your best toilet that recycles the water, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the winning thing was a toilet that held all the sewage and stuff and recycled all this water from it and cleaned it and passed, or whatever the hell they did to it, and came out clean drinking water. Yeah. And when he did a test, somebody literally used the washroom connected to this huge machine. They ran it all the way through the thing. He took the tap, poured it into a glass, and took the glass right away and drank it. And I'm like, that is a man of trust, because he trusts the team to do the job that he asked to do, right? Sure. They solved the problem that he asked them to solve, and he trusted the process in doing it.
So let's go back, and maybe we should have started with this. How do you recognize when you are in your own head or when you're in your own way?
So I always was a avid subscriber to the Tony Robbins idea of
Anthony Robbins.
Get the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of change in order for that change to occur.
For sure.
So one of my mentors, Owen RSD, shout him out. He put it in a story like this, and it resonated so deeply with me that I was like, damn, I need to start doing this a lot more. So here's the idea is, okay, I'm on an island and I'm uncomfortable. There's no shelter. Occasionally a crab walks up that I can eat, but I'm struggling. But you know what? I'm okay, because the only other option for me to fucking thrive here is if I swim across this channel. And the channel could be full of sharks or jellyfish or something dangerous, could totally fuck me up. I don't know, because I've never been in the water, but I'm too afraid of going in the water because I don't know what's there. But on the other side of the water is a full gamut of any of the things that I could ever imagine. There's shelter and food and water and
It's a lush paradise.
Right, it's a lush paradise. And the only thing stopping me from having access to that is this channel. But the thing is it's still comfortable on my island enough that I don't have to swim. So
The pain of going through
the
that
idea
channel.
is sometimes you just have to fucking torch the island. Sometimes you just have to burn down what's left there and leave. And I don't mean literally go and burn your house down and go find a new house, or fuck your relationship up so you can go find another one. What I do want to point at, though, is you got to recognize that this is so bad that the fear of that change, or the fear of the uncertain, or the fear of the shit that you don't know, or the challenges that you're going to have to face to get to the place that you want to be,
Right.
has to be less than the pain of staying where you are. So you have to burn everything down and then go across the channel so that you can get to the paradise that you actually want.
See, I'm extremely good at recognizing the flaws in myself and the flaws in others. What I'm terrible at is making the appropriate adjustments to fix those problems. Right?
Because you're kind of comfortable. But it doesn't hurt
I'm kind
a
of
lot.
comfortable. I mean, sometimes I'm really uncomfortable.
Right.
And sometimes I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter to me. We talked about this before. I'm not sure on this podcast. We talked about how I shit test everybody.
Yeah.
I shit test everybody. And Devin and I Devin broke this down brilliantly for me, and I won't get into it here, but the reason I'm doing it and all that stuff is because I recognize these things in other people that I have done, and I want to make sure they're on the same page, right? That's kind of the way I broke it down in my head. Devin does it a lot better than I do, but the reason that I don't make the necessary changes, because I can be extremely uncomfortable, but I love being in discomfort. It's
weird, right? You get stuck there.
It drives me to do things I wouldn't normally do, which, from my experience, is completely subjective. I would not recommend this to everybody. But being in the uncomfortable situations and that driving me to do something that I needed is what has got to me where I am today.
Do you think that that's a subliminal mechanism?
Absolutely. And I have no idea why. I have no idea how. I have no idea why I got it or how I got it. I just know it works for me. Right. I know.
It's your own version of torching the island.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I would rather. I can put myself through all this torture. I'll put it this way: when I lost 135 pounds running, right, I couldn't run half a block when I first started. 4 months in, I was running, 10 kilometers. And one day on a run, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to torch myself. I'm literally going to see how long I can go. And I ran for 37 and a half kilometers.
Jesus Christ.
But it took me 4 hours or 5 hours, right? And I was like, but when I'm in there, the 20th kilometer, 25th, 30th, I'm feeling it. It hurts. It's pain. It's suffering. And the whole time I'm put a fucking smile on my face.
Yeah.
Because I know that getting through this pain, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Probably not the next day because my legs are going to be too torched, but the following day I can do whatever the fuck I want because I just got through this pain.
Right.
And it's important to recognize that. And I think it's easy to tell when you're in your shit, right? I mean, your breath shortens, right? You might get a little sweaty, right? Your body will tell you when you're in your shit. You lay in bed at the end of the day, and instead of being able to fall asleep, you're just like recycling the same narrative over and over. So it's easy to recognize when I'm going through shit. And I was like, if I'm up at night, or if it keeps popping up throughout my day, and I'm thinking about it, or if I'm distracted, okay, I know it needs to be recognized. I know that there needs to be some sort of decision made about it. And for me, getting out of my own way, it really starts with recognizing what it is, right? What is it exactly that is causing the stress? What is it exactly that needs to be addressed? Because so often it could be something that is quite minor, and then we blow it up in our heads. And maybe it's like, I'm stressed about a date I'm going on the weekend. Like, maybe I met a chick and she's like, she really checks all the boxes. I'm like, okay, how do I need to crush this date? And then it goes from the simple answer, which is you guys are already going out. Everything's been built already. Show up and be you, right? How easy is that to just say, right?
Yeah.
However, when you're going through it, or you're walking up to her door to knock on the door, and it's like, okay, what am I wearing? What am I driving? What restaurant are we going to? What do we have planned? And then by the end of the date, there's been times I've spent so much energy focusing on the what is happening and not focusing on the how I'm being.
You had these expectations up to here of yourself, and you couldn't even live up to it yourself.
For sure, and those are my expectations, right? That has nothing to do with her. Maybe she might be fucking blown away by the end of it, and I leave, and say the date goes really well.
You're fucking exhausted,
and I'm
though.
done at the end of the day, like, fuck, I didn't bring it enough. I didn't crush it enough, and then she's at home, and so texting her girlfriend's like, oh my god, I just had the best night with this guy, right? So it's often so simple as just laying it out there and figuring out what the actual single root of the problem is. And so often for me, the solutions are so ridiculously simple that I overlook them.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I think we should touch on that more, and how simple it is to actually get past problems, right? A lot of guys, and this goes back to getting out of your own way, right? Again, if I'm having huge issues, I'll go for a run. Because when I'm running, the only thing you can do is you pound the pavement and think.
And for me,
you're either thinking about your breath, or you're thinking about the steps you're taking. And once that's done and it's subconscious and you just do it without it, then your mind starts going into all the different problems and all the little things that happen in your life, and you can sort those out. For me anyway, I used to sort them out when I ran very, very easily. Problems I had trouble with for 6, 7, 8 months, a year. I'd finally go for a run, and it would just flood into my brain. I'm like, oh, that's the solution. Like, it's ridiculous where your subconscious goes and how it reacts to what you're doing. Because I believe physical activity actually leads to mental stability.
It does.
Well,
right?
how we become so dramatic about the problems that we're having. I don't know about you,
let it
but
overwhelm you almost. Yeah.
there's a snowball effect where it's like, okay, I didn't get this one thing right, and I'm feeling a little bit down today, and then I notice that thing that I didn't get right, and I'm like, I don't get anything right. And then I start looking for all the other things I didn't get right.
Because
I'm like, oh, I
brain,
didn't get
for
this
sure.
right, and I'm not getting that right, and I'm a fucking loser.
Right.
And then it spirals out of control. And those are the moments when you most need to get out of your own way, because what's happening is you're just compounding on that idea. Do you experience that?
Well, here's what I do. It's kind of weird. When I'm getting to the point of, you have all this anxiety and things are building up within you. You want to build on, it piles on, right? I used to think that everybody was always looking at me. Everybody's looking
Somebody's
at me,
judging
and they're
you.
judging me all the time. Right? And there was an anxiety buildup and this and that. And I never realized what it was until, I started physically exerting myself to the point of, who gives a fuck what they think? This is me, I'm doing me. And if I'm running and somebody's judging me for running, cool, that's their problem, not mine.
For sure.
Like, these things for me never got worked out until I started putting the physical with the mental, right? Like I would meditate, not really meditate, but I would take, 5, 10, 15 minutes after my run, I would literally just lay on the grass. Right, I would lay on the grass. I would look up at the sky and just think. Right, my eyes would close. You just think about things. Right, I do that stuff in the morning now. And
Intentionally, though.
Intentionally,
Right.
Because it works.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, after the run, you're so physically exhausted. You have nothing else to do except you can just lay there. You don't have to worry about your body. Your body's gonna fucking lay there. It doesn't want to move anyway. Right. Your mind has already worked all the kinks out from everything you've done and all this stuff you were worrying about. Now you just have to focus on the solution. How do I get to the solution? You've worked out, that just gets you, here's the problem, here's the solution, these are the little steps you're going to take to get there. And that's what your brain just works out, and it flows so evenly, right?
It flows so evenly, and it's crazy. And honestly, I work out in the morning. I meditate in the morning too. I do that very
I wish I could do that, man.
religiously.
God, I wish I could do that.
It was game changing. It was just this year that I figured out how to do it. I do that religiously. And it's important because when you sweat, right, when you are being physically active, your body is producing good hormones. Good
The
endorphins,
hormones that
man,
actually balance that out.
work.
Yes.
And then once you're done, I sit and I chill. And I meditate, not a long time, 10, 15 minutes, right? And it is in those times where, I ground myself and say, okay, this is what's important.
It's a great word
today.
for it, yes.
This is what needs to get addressed, right? And there's so many times I have a bunch of shit on my brain, and by the end of my workout and my 10, 15 minute meditation, I'm like, oh, 90% of the shit that I was focused on and stressing on doesn't even need to get done. It's not
you're
even
zen.
fucking important.
You're zen.
It's not even important.
Yeah.
Here's what really needs to get done, right?
Yes,
and
thank
this
you
is
for
what
putting it
happens.
that way.
And what you said earlier when you said, let the subconscious go. What our brains do, what their job is to keep us alive. So whatever we're thinking about, your brain is going to just constantly find those things, right? If you're hungry, guess what? The only thing you're going to see on the side of the road is fast food places and restaurants. If you're thinking about, oh shit, there's this car I really want to buy. Has anyone experienced that? Like, oh, I really want this car.
So that's
all
the only
you
car you
see
see.
everywhere
So that's
you
your
go.
reticular activating system, right? So what your reticular activating system does in your brain is it actually blocks out 99% of everything we come in contact with and everything we experience in the world. However, if you're focused on something, let's take the car situation, right? Before, I had a Mazda 3 before, right? And before I bought the Mazda 3, I was looking at it and this and that, and I was like, okay, whatever, right? And I didn't buy it the first time I went in and get it. And for the next week, that's all I saw. The only cars I saw, I noticed them everywhere because I was focused on the car I had seen, I had test driven, right? So I saw every single Mazda 3 that was driving. Same thing happens in relationships. Same thing happens in work, right? If you're experiencing something great and you can actually take that and manifest and say, this is something great and realize what you're doing. And then your brain goes, this is something great. Let's see if we can experience that again.
And that's
right?
what it's so important to actually, remove the conscious ego brain out of the way because your subconscious is going to create everything. Like
Absolutely.
your subconscious, your superconscious, your connection to everything in the world is constantly manifesting.
Absolutely.
And it will manifest good shit. It'll manifest bad shit. You know, it doesn't know the difference between what's good and what's bad. That's for us to put the label on it. So if we're thinking, oh, you know what, I'm experiencing, I have a ton of debt, or, things aren't going my way, I can't catch a break. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to continue to create those negative experiences, those negative
It's
results.
not good or bad.
Yeah.
It just
It's not
is.
good, bad,
is.
right, or wrong in any way. However, what we're thinking about is going to keep popping up. And if you
Absolutely.
can, and this is what's so important about, and you know what, it's people, laugh about it and they say, oh, affirmations or meditation or these little things, right, journaling, those little things. Who cares if it works? What if it does work? And you just say, okay, now we're focusing and thinking about good things that are happening.
Right.
Even if life is shit right now. Even if you're going through the shit, take a minute, chill out, do something positive. Just think about the good things that you want to have happen, and you will train yourself to focus on that, and you will start to create those results.
Let's look at the state of the society that we're in right now, right? I mean, social media society is overrun with social media. What's on social media? A bunch of negative shit, right? You keep looking at negative shit, all you're gonna find in your brain is negative shit. Your brain's just gonna keep going back to it, right? We had this conversation outside just before we started. My life, I'm on 9 different shows, right? I think I'm overexposed. He doesn't. So I'm
I don't think
constantly.
there's such a thing as overexposure.
Yeah,
Nope.
unless never mind. I'm constantly being filmed, being recorded. There's usually something going on every night of the week for me, right? I'm literally in these situations where it's all mostly negativity, and I have to give my opinion and my feedback, and I'm going into these inner recesses of my brain to kind of come up with a solution for these things, right? And when we missed recording last week, it took me, I got used to just the 3 episodes we did prior to that. I got so used to having this center me every week.
Right.
That 1 week that we didn't do it, I felt it.
Yeah.
I recorded a couple of shows and I was like, whoa, I can't do this when I haven't had this.
I am popping off way too much.
Because I go off on a bunch of things, but without being centered, it's beyond me.
Yeah.
Right. Like I couldn't even control it. It was so weird. That's when we had that message chat today. I said, I'm going all the way off on tonight's episode.
And I'm
Now
gonna
I'm
call
not.
you out on it. You're not at all.
I'm
This
not.
has been a very chill episode.
And simply because we're having a conversation that I enjoy. We're having a positive conversation. I don't need to go into the negative.
And when you say that social media is all negative, I firmly disagree with that.
No, I didn't say it's all negative.
My
It's
social media
yeah.
is like if I flip through Instagram right now, it is so positive. It is my friends, what's going on in their life, and then it's nothing but positive.
Well,
I
that's
would
the
created it
difference.
like that.
I was gonna say that's the difference. You're
I would
creating like that.
argue-
My whole online persona is the guy that's ranting, right? And the guy that's dealing with all the negative shit. So I've kind of created this myself, and this is my way to deal with it now.
So
right?
here's a good question
Sorry for
for
cutting
that
you off.
because it's awesome that you recognize that this session, this recording is grounding for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's made a positive change in your life, right? So it's immediate results that just in a short period of time that we've been doing
The
this.
first week it happened, I realized it right away, right?
So there's something to be taken home for everybody listening to this is, even like we're here for an hour a day. how powerful is that hour? What's a shift that's happened for you, Devin, in this since we've started doing this?
Good question. That's fucking great.
The biggest thing that I found actually is that I'm taking more responsibility for my own self-awareness, where before there was a certain level of just because I've been in the self-development world for a very, very long time, so I'm constantly trying to improve myself. But there have been some incongruencies that have been called, not just on this podcast, this very podcast where it's like, oh, I got to call you out on the thing that you're saying, but your actions don't reflect. And so that has held me to a new standard of accountability that I didn't have before. And so it's caused me to think a lot more about it. And here's what's funny about this. What I'm hearing a lot of is that there is a level of self-reflection that happens, whether or not you like it. And thanks to your reticular activating system, if you're not actively taking control of it, it's happening
Regardless.
against your
no
will.
matter what.
Against your will.
So you might
ever been
not
sitting
against
at
your
your desk and
100%
doing...
on your will, on
Right.
the wrong focus.
So yeah,
right.
as long as you
So
recognize it, you can adjust to where it's going.
Yeah, well, and here's it, right? Here it is. You're sitting at your desk or doing whatever the fuck you're doing, and there's shit going on, but for whatever fucking reason, for like 15 minutes, you just completely spaced out. And you don't know what just happened to those 15 minutes. Your mind was wandering. You were thinking about shit. And that is literally meditation. But that's meditation from your mind being so overwhelmed that it will do whatever it can to just shut you the fuck off and then make you do it because you have to do it in order to cleanse, filter, clean, wash, recycle, whatever it is, those thought patterns and those thought processes. So this book actually is on that shelf. It's called Blink. And in that book, it talks very much about the reticular activating system, Malcolm Gladwell. So the idea here is that our brains do things that we don't know is happening while it's happening. So the reticular activating system being that thing that controls all of those things. So if you're constantly being bombarded by negative things or by certain messages, your brain starts trying to unpack those messages, whether or not you like it. It's already happening. So what I hear from you is when you scroll through your feeds, most of your social media, and this is thanks to you programming the algorithms to serve you this content because it's the shit you engage with the most, you get fed a lot of positivity and that recycles the positivity into your life. Whatever it is, whether it's motivational speech or, somebody giving you some tips and advice on how to do shit in your life or whatever. And on the flip side, there are other people who just naturally respond to the negative stimulus, and that negative stimulus becomes what their reticular activating system has to address and focus on. And so when you're in that overwhelming bombardment of whatever that is, and you don't have a choice, and your brain shuts down and now has to address that thing, it goes fucking haywire. And that's where the depression and anxiety and all this other shit stems from. Now, one of the studies that they did, and this is where I'm going to end this, one of the studies they did in this book was they polled people at different intervals over several years. What is the most important thing that people need to be dealing with right now? Now, fucked up, but real and true. There was a direct correlation with whatever messaging was on whatever media that was prevalent at the time. The people said that was the most important thing. So I'm just going to say this. World hunger is still a fucking issue, guys. Homelessness and poverty, still a fucking issue, guys. Racial bias and gender inequality and all these other things, still a fucking thing, guys. But if right now 1,000 people were polled, what would they say the most important thing we need to figure out right now is? It's not world poverty and hunger and fucking disease. It's not this, it's not that. What is it?
It's COVID.
It's COVID-19. And that's because that's the thing that's on top of mind. That's the thing that all of our reticular activating systems are trying to address.
Yeah.
And so it begs you as a human being with a need to serve the collective what is it that's actually the biggest fucking problem right now? And it's not what you're being told the biggest problem is right now. The biggest problem is actually goes a lot deeper, and you can see it happening in all of the communities, the self-medication, the mental health, the suicides, the depression, the anxiety, all that shit. It was never that prevalent before, mainly because our minds were more focused on, industrial revolution. That just happened fucking 80 years ago. So
I want to expand on something you said, but at the same time, bring it back into the conversation of getting out of your own way. You said, some people thrive in negativity like me, right? And some people thrive having the positive, right? You have to realize which kind of person you are, because if you're a person that thrives in positivity, but you're in my situation, you're going to have a lot of social anxiety. You're going to have depression. There's going to be mental issues that you aren't going to be able to deal with because you're naturally not equipped to deal with it. Right. And there's people like I said, like me, that thrive in the negativity. Now, whether that was self-made or not,
you're conditioned for it, though.
Conditioned for
it's like war.
Every day for me, I wake up and I'm happy. I'm super happy, but the negativity is what drives me to be happy, because the negativity pushes me to do the things I need to do, right? I'm not sure if it's the same with positive. The positive people in your life, forces you to be better and be more like them to be more positive, right? So, and it drives you to be the person you are now and to be better than you are now, right? That's the same thing with negative, right? But if you don't know which person you are, if you want to stay lukewarm and stay right in the middle, good luck, because there's not many people that can survive just being dead face straight. There's nobody that I know that's like that, right?
I'm going to say I agree with you, and I'll speak a little bit to the positive side, because for my whole life I've been inherently overly positive. I've actually taken a lot of feedback and criticism at some point for being positive. I'm going to suggest something to you, Parnell, that I don't believe that you thrive in negativity. I'm going to say you thrive in controversy, in controversial situations.
I'll take
right?
that. I'll take that.
Right, because you're like, okay, there's some controversy, there's some heat,
the challenge of
there's
conflict,
some intensity here.
The challenge
you
of
thrive there.
Oh my, I love it.
Right, and for me, I definitely do thrive in the positive, and I create positive. I breed positivity, and I share that. I daily will compliment people for no reason. Right, I'm wearing the same shirt I did. Last episode. I'm just recognizing that now. I'm like, oh fuck. And then say something nice, like Devin's wearing a nice scarf, I guess.
Right.
And then
I guess
I caught it. I was waiting for him. I was like,
and then there's these ways that to share that. And for me, by sharing positivity, by giving, especially when I'm not at my best, I am able to create momentum. And
I like it.
Before we go too crazy here, you said a couple really cool things in that monologue. Thank you. That's the exact word I was looking for in that monologue. And the first one is, if your reticular activating system is constantly working, right? Let's say, both you and I are standing in a field. It's an endless field, right? And we're standing together, maybe like back to back, and we move so that we're facing, 2 degrees facing a different direction, right? And we run for 100 miles. Right? Where are we going to end up? We're started at the same place. We're not even facing that much of a different direction. We're going to end up in a completely different place.
I can do the actual math if you want.
Let's do it. We'll put it in the comments. 100 miles with a 2-degree shift. How far away would we be? Right? And that's how it works. If you're focused on shit, you're going to get more shit. If you're focused on what you want, you're going to get more of what you want.
Yep.
The second thing I wanted to touch on that you were speaking about there is how fucking important is it to have real, uncensored, unfiltered, unbiased feedback. Right?
It goes such a long way.
That is so beautiful. I love having it. And
good, bad, right, ugly, doesn't matter what.
Doesn't matter.
Feedback.
If I want unfiltered feedback, there's 3 people in my life I go to. Well, 4 now, I guess, with you. I'll and 3 of them are in this room.
Sometimes they're not haters. Sometimes they're fucking honest, and you just don't like it.
And
it doesn't suit your narrative.
Sometimes you need to hear something fucking ugly from somebody that you care about.
And my problem is that, there's so many trolls online, and I get so much bullshit online.
It's hard to trust.
It's hard to trust anybody online, right? So my go-to has to be somebody that I recognize as somebody I respect. This is going to sound really bad. There's not many people I respect.
You know what's funny
And
is you get to choose who you fucking
yeah.
respect,
And
whose
here's-
opinion you respect or not.
Here's why, is because, again, I shit test everybody.
Yeah.
If they haven't passed a test to my standard,
Right.
I don't trust them.
And how easy is that, you know, when you thrive on controversy
Right.
to say, or, you know, me who thrives in positivity, or, you know what, honestly, literally anybody who's fucking listening to this right now, you clearly want to be a leader.
Yeah.
You're here because you want to be a
Absolutely.
leader, right? You are going to hear shit. You're going to face controversy. You're
All
going
the
to
time.
meet people who do not want you to succeed all the time.
Every
Guess
day.
what? You're never going to hear shit, real shit from somebody who's doing more than you. Doesn't exist. Not
Post and
going to
ghost,
happen.
man. Post and ghost.
And when you are certain and clear on what you're doing and what you're creating, the shit that you hear doesn't stick.
When you get crystal clear
It sticks when you believe
Yeah.
it.
when you get crystal clear about your goal and the path to get there, nothing else is relevant.
Yep. And you get into creativity. And then when you said earlier, Pernell, you said sometimes you're just too close to the problem to see the solution. If you can find something for creativity, you know, for you it's running, for me it's music. Whether I'm listening to music or playing music, and I can just totally chill and zen out. And I'll be, you know, like I was listening to Led Zeppelin yesterday. I fucking came across this ridiculous live version of Stairway to Heaven.
I
Never
saw
heard
that.
it.
I was like, that's fucking awesome,
Insane.
dude.
It was
Yeah.
insane.
I played it. I could not believe it.
I was
blew my
listening
mind.
to it. I listened to it 3 times, and when it hit, like when Jimmy Page was rocking that solo, I was like, "Oh my fucking god!" And
Yeah.
it was like literally, I was thinking, you know, all day about how I was going to start this week off on a more positive note than last week, because you know, for me and my job, it was really slow for the first half of last week, right? And then this week, it was just like boom, creativity, and it was right away recognize, oh, I needed to, you know, whether it worked or not, like whether last week, and who knows, maybe I didn't show up enough, right? However, my decision was I needed to show up with twice as much intensity that I did last week, because obviously, based off of results, it wasn't there.
Ever since these last 4, and honestly, it's been the last month, maybe month and a quarter, where there's been a slight shift in how I interact with everyone, to the point where it's affecting me mentally. I'm not sure if it's positive or negative right now. It's kind of both.
And you get to choose which one it is.
Well, here's why I say that. For my show, that's for my controversy show, it's a negative because it's making me more positive. For the stuff I'm doing for other people that I'm giving back to, the shit I love to feel, it's a positive, right? There's things that I've noticed just having these conversations with you guys that I'm doing now that I didn't realize I would be doing, and people are coming and commenting on it and making me feel great, because I think I've been doing this for so long now that people are like, wait a second, he actually does have a heart. People that actually know me, and I don't mean to make this all about myself, guys, but people that actually know who you are as a person, doesn't matter how you're acting to the outside world. I could be acting a complete fool to the outside world, you still know who I am as a person.
Right.
Right? You still know who I am as a person.
But I would call you on the incongruency.
Exactly what I was going to say. You would
Feedback.
give me the feedback I needed to address those situations and get out of my own way.
Right.
Right?
And
Me being a
arguably,
dick-
that's a good friend.
Exactly. Me doing my podcast, I'm an asshole on the podcast.
Yeah.
If I'm like that in person to people that don't know me, I'm going to get called on that, or I'm going to get punched in the fucking face.
I mean, that's the law of the jungle, I suppose.
Right? So recognizing that I'm feeding off all the controversy, but the positive things are now starting to come out of me because of these conversations. I really want to thank you guys for having these conversations with me personally, because there's so much I've learned just in the past 4 weeks that maybe I knew subconsciously, but they weren't prevalent and at the forefront of thought.
Right.
So thank you for that.
For sure. And when it's really cool to hear that. And, you know, to touch on the feedback thing, we're constantly, every single person is constantly both giving and receiving feedback, intentionally or unintentionally,
Yep.
right? And I mean, the intentional ones are easy, right? I go to the gym for 3 days, nobody's going to notice anything. I go to the gym for 3 months, people are going to hear it, right? Flip side. you know,
Consistency.
I don't go to the gym for 3 days. I'm not going to notice it. I don't go to the gym for 3 months. I'll notice it. And then hearing that feedback, you know, like if one of the boys is like, oh, like, bro, mixing a salad once in a while, like, oh, you know, that's feedback. Okay, that hits. Do I want to make a change? Yes or no, right? You have a decision to make at that point.
Well, and what happens when you're out with the homies and instead of ordering hot wings, you order a salad and then the homies roast you on the salad?
Oh, I can tell you exactly what happens. I used to do it all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's what, it's funny because you're the shit tester and you know it.
No, I was one guy. I was the guy
Being
ordering a
the
salad.
socially inept guy, here's what's fucked up is I recognize now something that I didn't recognize before it. If you're going to roast him on ordering the salad this time, you're testing to make sure that this motherfucker's gonna be consistent to what he says he is. Just like I don't know, me in the scarf. It's whatever. I wear scarves.
It is a nice scarf.
I'm totally fine with
It's a
it.
nice scarf.
But that's my decision.
Exactly.
That's who I am.
But
And
that's-
you gotta test me. Oh, are you gonna be a scarf guy now? Yeah, fuck, I'm gonna be a scarf guy.
Because if you cannot handle a little shit test like that
From a homie.
from a friend,
Yeah.
there's no way we're gonna be
What
in
happens
business
when
together.
I go out and I get roasted by the
Yeah.
girl I'm trying to pick
Exactly.
up, or you're the business guy that I just met, or
there's
whatever?
always
I'm gonna
some-
get fucking roasted. I'm gonna cry on my way home.
There's always something bigger I'm trying to achieve with somebody else. Whether I explain that to you or not, whether you figured out like Devin has and nobody else in my fucking life has.
I think that's the thing that most logical thinkers, or I'm trying to like think about the kind of person I am and the kind of people that are like me out there, that fucked up. Or don't get this and are stuck in this paradigm of, I don't know, for example, everybody's bullying me. Maybe it's not bullying. Maybe you're being trained like the Spartans. You know, the Spartans used to fight each other all the time. They fought each other so that they could be better at fighting other people. But at the end of the
movie
fight,
300?
they
Watch
picked each
300.
other up and
Yeah.
hugged it out, and they went and ate a fucking really great feast.
Exactly.
But that's what you do. You feast with the people you train with.
And
so when I get shit tested, I feel like I'm being trained. Whereas before I used to be like, oh, poor me, nobody likes me, and I was that guy, guys. I'm not lying or exaggerating when I say that.
And there's a real quote, it's a real fucking solid one that stuck with me forever, and it's work harder in practice, bleed less in war.
Oh, that's exactly
I
it.
used to post that. I think when I was running, I used to post that every week. Right?
So true. And this goes back to reeling, let's reel
Yeah, the more
everything
you
in.
bleed in practice, the less you bleed in war.
For sure. Consistency. Little things. You do not need to make earth-shattering, life-altering changes all the time.
Right.
Yeah, like I know
Little small changes.
You just have
do
to
it
show up
consistently.
averagely, consistently
Do a little
to
bit
become
better, do a
great.
little
like
bit better
I
than
know
average.
consistently every week Steve is going to show up with goofy socks on. I know that.
Oh,
He
these
loves
ones aren't
them.
even that bad.
Those are actually really classic.
I'm hiding my feet right now. I don't care. I posted on social media already when you guys were fucking all intense.
Yeah.
You know, but I know he's coming from work. I know he wears dress shoes at work. It's not necessarily going to match his whatever's going on, right? So, you know, for me, little things like that, taking little jabs, he's not going to be offended by it because I know him well enough. He doesn't give a fuck. He's confident in himself saying, yeah, I love my fucking socks.
Yeah.
I'm wearing heart socks. I don't give a shit. He knows I don't give a shit because I'm wearing fucking heart socks.
yeah.
He knows I don't care what I'm saying, but this is bonding.
Yeah,
Right? This is getting out of our own way to realize that we have a common goal.
Yeah.
Right? And as minuscule as it may sound, and as stupid as it may sound, this is how guys bond. This is how guys get along. This is how guys create friendships.
Yeah.
This is how guys create trust and partnerships and being vulnerable with each other. Because I know if he comes one day with sport socks on,
Yeah.
he probably knows he's gonna get roasted for it because we do like his socks.
They're
Right?
great socks.
Maybe
They're
I
great
worked out
socks.
before
I
coming
guess.
You know what I mean? But
here. Maybe I slept in and
Right?
did my workout after work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he knows that I'm shit testing him on socks because if he didn't come with those socks, I knew he didn't work today. If he didn't work today, what the fuck were you doing with your time? And if it wasn't positive, then I'm gonna fucking blast you on it. Right? That's where it gets to. But
And
most people don't realize that.
I would also argue that it's up to you to decide whether or not you can handle it or not. And you know what?
Yeah.
If I was in a vulnerable state emotionally, and you came in and roasted me on the scarf, and I was like, "Fuck you, man." You know what I
I
mean?
would recognize that.
So there's two things here that
Right.
happens. First of all, I have to take the responsibility to be like, guys, I'm sorry for saying fuck you, man. I'm really vulnerable right now. I'm not feeling good, and I'm not in the place to be roasted. I need a different kind of support.
Literally
That's
what
my
happened-
responsibility. It's not yours.
Literally what happened last week when I came into this room.
Yeah.
Right? You started busting my balls a little bit. I said, listen, hold on. There's something I'm going through, man. We talked about it. You're like, oh shit. I apologize for that. I'm like, no, it's not your fault. You didn't know until I
And that's
told
the
you.
other side. You need
Right?
to, as the homie who roasts, you need to be responsible for your homie that isn't there. If I roast you and you're not feeling it,
Yeah.
I gotta be like, I'm sorry, dude. I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna take care of you. What do you need from me?
Yeah.
right? So you got to recognize both sides of that. And if you don't have a group of friends that can have that open channel of communication, then you're going to be in a fucking really bad spot.
It's even more subtle than that. Like, we didn't have that conversation of, hey man, I'm not in a good mood and maybe you shouldn't do that. We didn't have that conversation. You saw by the way I was carrying myself, walking in. You recognize that. So you have to have consciously recognize how people are feeling.
Because I wasn't worried about myself all the time. I wasn't self-focused. I was outwardly focused.
When you said that comment, you know, if I wasn't wearing those socks, it means I didn't work today. What did I do with my time? And you would call me out on that. Next week, we're going to do responsibility and accountability. Yeah.
Fucking love it.
Listen, we have a gentleman in the room that knows exactly how I feel about that. Listen, and this is the last time I'm going to reference it, this episode. Every week on my podcast, I talk about responsibility and accountability and how that forwards society. And if you're not doing it yourself, if you're not taking individual responsibility and accountability, then you're only hurting yourself and your future generations. So I cannot wait to that.
Nobody's going to take you seriously. Spoiler alert, nobody is ever going to take you seriously if you are unable to be accountable for the shit that comes out of your own mouth.
1,000,000%. You can say whatever you want, but you're not free of those consequences.
100%.
I love it. Hey, words.
Peace.
Words.
Okay, let's do it.
The word association for getting out of your own way. I'm going to go with, again, accountability.
Wow, just like that. Hey,
I'm taking it because you took it last time.
Creativity.
Responsibility.
I'm going to take self-worth.
I'm going to go with surrendering.
Self-preservation.
Vulnerability.
Good. That's awesome. That's enough.
I love it. Guys, thanks for watching Alpha Project. We'll catch you next week. Peace.